Welcome to ShiftWatch. I'm your host, Starbuck. In this episode, since the Endless Possibilities podcast with Gareth, I've heard from a lot more tribe after 37,000 views in 10 days. It would be fascinating to understand the algorithm behind that kind of response, but that's not what's important. While we are experiencing these energetic changes in the world and others, it's good to have confirmation that these extraordinary events are becoming more widespread. Or is it that people are more comfortable talking about the things that often kept them from fitting in society? This clip is with Troy, one of those tribes showing up and reporting for duty. Next, there's been modest solar energy impacting Earth with KP levels rising and falling. Particularly noteworthy was a huge volcanic eruption in Ethiopia with a shockwave felt for miles and a rather impressive 9-mile-high flume of ash. Here's an update from Space Weather News. Then, auroras over Mount Shasta. Thanks to Matthew Newman Photography for his video capture during the November 11th and 12th geostorms. He hit the trifecta in that we see Mount Shasta, auroral activity at that latitude, as well as lenticular clouds shrouding the peak at first. Then we see this form just off the east side create itself until at around 2:39, we witness what I see as a power-up. Welcome to dimensional activity taking place, and you got to see it. And finally, our friend Scanner Guy 1968 posted this wonderful composite of images he's captured, and there are some extraordinary phenomenon you'll see here. He had me at, and then they turned. See for yourself.
You know, the, the energetic part of all of this is what we need to carry away. And until it happens a few times, to us, it's just extraordinary experiences until later when it's happened often enough that I can finally put that into context. And then when there's somebody, because now I need a touchstone. I know what happened to me. Has this ever happened to anybody else? That's when your tribe shows up. And it's not that we have the same experiences, and I appreciate more and more when they're not. Look, your journey isn't mine, and your lessons weren't mine. Why should I expect that our journeys are going to be the same? It's not that we won't experience things in the same realms that we can reach out to and touch now, but we had not been told any of this before. So we got to learn it on our own. And if we do, we have to be open enough to consider the possibility, probability of the things that are coming into my field. Because when things cross your paths unsolicited, you can't ignore them after like the third or fourth time without somebody coming to the conclusion that something's trying to communicate with me. And it's not on a level because I'm having these profound thoughts I have never had before. And so I don't know where I'm coming up with this stuff. You finally conclude it's not you, but you are connected to something greater than yourself. And all of a sudden you see yourself as a vessel for it. Now, along the way, you find other vessels. And it's wonderful because the information they're talking about resonates with you, but it's not your story. They have their own things going on, but man, you can see how it all is part of the same gel. And we're just the advanced team. That's why we sense it first. We talk about it first. You know, recently, I've been sequestered for several months, and I was fine with that. Look, I never wanted to be a talking head and said that long ago. And my guides laughed at me and said, no, you're going to do a podcast. And it was fine. I never had the idea that I was hosting a podcast and I would bring in guests. It was always a Zoom platform. And this is live. So if you show up, you got questions, ask them. I'm here.
Uh-huh.
Dave Wallace is here. Sometimes, other people would show up that had extraordinary experiences. Here's your opportunity to exchange with people that have had real experiences. I didn't want to be a talking head talking about somebody else's experiences. I don't have time for that.
Yeah,
But
right.
man, you find out how small the community is now. It's not so small anymore.
Good morning, folks. Welcome, observers. Today we're looking at the African volcano eruption, including some shots you probably haven't seen before. We've got cosmological shenanigans once again, and a solid story on the great May 2024 solar storm as well. But we are starting, as always, with the last 24 hours on our star, where things are not too dramatic at the moment. Coronal hole turning through on the south, its solar wind perturbation is being delivered already. The massive sunspot groups are still over on the far side, turning around, leaving smaller sunspots on the Earth-facing side, and the plasma filaments actually taking the top watch position for now. While we wait for those bigger sunspots to see if they return, only about 2 or 3 days if it's going to happen, these plasma filaments become Earth-directed eruption threats tonight. The solar wind here shows that the sector boundary of the sun's current sheet is interacting, and with plasma speed now shooting up, that is almost certainly the coronal hole stream settling in. Geomagnetic conditions today are expected to remain near the low-level solar storm we have already reached this morning, lingering effects expected for about 2 days, but also no further impacts or amplifications are expected. By now, most of you have heard about the huge volcanic eruption in Ethiopia. Hasn't happened at least since before the last disaster. First big boom in the Holocene for this one. Locals say it sent out a massive shockwave, felt like a bomb, and the plume lifted to pretty impressive heights. I pulled some of the imagery from Meteosat, perfectly positioned to capture this eruption. The dust return is one of the wilder ones I've ever seen on this wavelength. Eventually, remember, the entire rift does this and Africa splits. First article today, tracing the speed of the solar system moving through the universe. You might recall they already found an anomalous velocity direction towards the galactic center, which is almost certainly electrostatic, but this is a more general velocity excess that violates the standard cosmology. That's the same one that can't find the dark matter or dark energy they say is 96% of the entire universe. Fun times. Wonder if maybe we need a new plasma-based cosmology. Last but not least in the articles, we have this excellent look at how the plasmasphere was compressed to 1/5 of its normal size, which is far beyond what should have been possible given the fainter nature of most of the shockwaves back in May of 2024. I have now actually lost count of how many excess effect reports about the May 2024 solar storm have been claimed. I do know, however, they're all due to Earth's magnetic shield dropping faster and faster in the ongoing pole shift.